Welcome back to the home front. I'm your host, Reed Galen. Today, I'm joined by Kat Abugazaleh. She is running for Congress in Illinois' 9th District. Before stepping into the arena, she was a journalist for outlets such as Media Matters, Mother Jones, and Zateo News. You probably, guys, remember Kat's incredible reporting on the worst people in the world, including Tucker Carlson, on whose beat I think you were on for a long time, if I'm not wrong, Kat. She is running a grassroots progressive campaign with a new campaign model. She is just off finishing up a end of quarter fundraising run, which it sounds like you hit your goal. So congratulations on that. Kat, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Reed.
Okay, so you and I first met, I think I've talked about this before in our previous interview, I don't know, like sometime last year, didn't really know each other, we both come from Texas, both came from sort of similar roots, but had found ourselves sort of in this weird like horseshoe place where we came to similar outlooks on life from very different places. But you told me, I think might have been 3 or 4 months ago, that you were considering running for office. And I think you were the first of your generation to really throw your hat in the ring. So before we get started on what the campaign is about, tell us why you decided to make this choice, because as you're now learning, not an easy one.
No, wow. Before I launched, people were like, this is going to be crazy. You're going to have balls that are dropped. It's going to be one of the most stressful things you've ever done. It's going to be really fun too. And I was like, I'm built different. I'm sure it'll be different for me. And it's not. It's not. Some things just you have to give up. I don't work out anymore. I get like winded going up 2 flights of stairs because that was like the thing I had to give up. I get like all my endorphins from spicy food. But yeah, I don't remember the exact moment that just made me go, fuck it, I'm going to run. But like, I didn't plan to run for Congress. I don't want to be in Congress for decades. All the people I covered for my job now run our government. And we have been telling them for years, Democrats, how to handle the far right. And they haven't listened. And I got sick of waiting around for someone else to do something and for someone else to do the things that I've been saying people, not just Democrats, but people should do in politics. So I said, screw it. I'll do it myself. And I'm trying to do and say the things that I wish would be done and said in politics. And so far it's going pretty well.
So let's talk about that. And maybe that was our connection, was as a vestigial Republican now, and I'm probably closer to you on the political scale now than I was where I grew up. But that same frustration is something that caused us to launch the Lincoln Project back in 2019, which was, if you guys aren't going to get your act together on this stuff, then we'll just do it. Now, of course, we had no idea what it would become, but that was the driving force, which was, we're not going to wait around anymore. And even now, almost 6 years since we made that decision, Kat, it does not appear that a lot of those lessons have been learned.
Yeah, I mean, the people that are making the most difference now are the people on the ground, are individuals, are people whose lives are considered less than. I mean, we see with Trump, authoritarian regimes, and this one is no different, go after the people that don't have power and leverage to attack. They deport 238 men without due process to a concentration camp overseas because they don't have a national platform. They shoot people with rubber bullets walking home because those people are anonymous. And it's really frustrating to see. It's inspiring, but also frustrating to see the people with the least power doing the most. And I think you and I both have talked about this for hours before, but there's this idea that we've kind of adopted in our political sphere of like lauding political figures. And this is a job like any other. Elections are when you either get hired or fired. And I think we need to be looking at it this way. And there's no this life isn't a movie. There's no like hero that's going to jump in and save every single district. That person is you. You should run. Like, we are all we've got. And if you keep wondering, when is someone going to save me? No one is. You are, and we are together.
Let me ask you this, because, I traveled the country last fall, and to the point about the people who, when I say the least of us, please, I understand, don't mistake that for being pejorative, right? I'm not trying to be paternalistic.
It literally just means the fact that, like, and this is so screwed up, if a senator or representative gets shot with a rubber bullet, it's a national news story. If you or your kid does, so what? In the eyes of a lot of our ruling class in the media.
But they're also the same people that I met last year, Kat, who are most likely to just sit it out. They were like, it doesn't matter anymore. I heard, at a conference the other day, I heard somebody say, a member of the African American community said, my life wasn't better under Obama. It wasn't worse under Trump. What difference does it make?
I mean, I think that's really that's what got us here in the first place is, I mean, there a lot of people are right in that respect. Politicians haven't been doing anything for us. They dangle positive change like a carrot. Like in my campaign, we're using our funds to improve people's lives because like showing will always resonate more than telling. And so that's why a lot of people are apathetic towards the political system. It's why they don't believe in change. I mean, with Zoran's win in New York, it was incredible because not just because he won, but because it gave people a lot of hope. And this version of Trump, this second Trump administration, is a whole nother beast from 2016. I think a lot of the people that voted for him or didn't vote at all feel that now. And I get it, people who find it tempting to say, I told you so. But I have never seen a president make the federal issues hurt so much at the local level so fast. And there are a lot of people on the table that are looking for change. And that's why, Zoran won in New York. That's why my candidacy and a lot of others are gaining momentum because it's not just people that are voting that are sick of it. It's the people that are now running.
Well, I want to get to New York City in a second because I think there's a lot to learn there. But that's the one thing I found either with my travels last fall or the travel I've done this year, going down to someplace like Suffolk, Virginia, deep southeastern Virginia, a lot of retirees, a lot of veterans, and they are worried about what's going on, with this bill that's probably going to pass by the time people are hearing this is going to hurt a lot of people. A young man that I met in Florida back in March, JJ, right? He has cerebral palsy. He and his mom rely on Medicaid. He's, God bless him. God bless them. He's a junior in college. They have dealt with everything that God and circumstance and everything else has thrown at them. And all they're saying is like, please don't leave us out to dry. And that's exactly what happens. But I think also the idea is you have to go to those places. I mean, I'll just tell you candidly, talking to the folks I have in Suffolk, some of my, the people on the union's team, they were canvassing the weekend prior. Nobody had ever heard of Abigail Spanberger. She's the Democratic nominee for governor. And in southeastern Virginia, in these rural areas, ex-urban areas, nobody's ever heard of her. And I think that's a problem too, which is you must go to the places where people live. It's not enough to say, I'm going to campaign in Fairfax County or I'm going to campaign in Evanston or you understand what I'm saying. It's
No,
not enough to be
absolutely.
in the high end suburbs, right? And I think also, my guess is, and you can appreciate this, yes, there's a lot to be said about Trump, but we also saw, Kat, in 24 that just being anti-Trump wasn't enough.
No, and it's because once again, politicians aren't delivering on things. Some people would say like duh, but it doesn't have to be this way. And I love what you said about going where people are. The district I'm running in was redistricted in 2022. I encourage everyone to look up Illinois district maps because they are wild. And so now this district includes Chicago, Evanston, which is a northern suburb, Skokie, which is another northern suburb, but it goes all the way out to McHenry County, which is the only county in the Chicago area that's voted for Trump the last 3 elections. And the people that were redistricted in say they feel ignored. And frankly, I don't blame them. So like we're making an effort to go out there. Like we're opening a satellite office out there because just because an area voted for Trump or just because someone's not in the center of where a lot of your base is doesn't mean they don't deserve to be represented. I mean, call me idealistic, but I think every voter deserves representation. Additionally, it's really frustrating to see Democrats put like $20 million into making a Joe Rogan in a lab. First off, Joe Rogan doesn't get the attention of young men. His main audience is like 40-year-old white dudes. If your aim is young men, then you need to be talking to young men. But also, you could be using that money in a lot of different ways. Part of what I built my campaign on was seeing in 2024 how much money got wasted, how much money was spent by the Harris campaign and to no avail, and what that could have been used on. Because like you and I both know, as like former big R Reagan Republicans, actions speak louder than words. Right now, if you want to reach people, go to red and blue places alike and be like, you lost your job, we'll help you find another one. Your Medicaid got cut, cool, we are funding your local clinic. You can't afford groceries, that's why the Democratic Party is stocking your food bank. You could be using that money for real change right now that is not reliant on any legislation, just You spending that money, spending those resources, using the people that you have to help others. And there are some people that'll just might take the benefits and ignore you, but there are a lot more others that will remember that come primary day, come the general election.
Well, also, your
Also, it's just
your
a good thing to do.
well, it's a good thing to do, and it's also delightfully but also effectively old fashioned, which was not to make light of it necessarily, Kat, but there was a time when every Thanksgiving somebody needed to make sure Mrs. Johnson got her turkey.
Mm-hmm.
Every Thanksgiving. And every Thanksgiving, Mrs. Johnson got her turkey. And then Mrs. Johnson said, Kat, who should I vote for? Right? Who should I vote for? And Kat says, you should vote for X, Y, and Z. And Ms. Johnson says, okay, makes sense to me. That is not cynical. That is organizing at the most local level because she is going to go with the person who's been there for her.
Absolutely. And like, with our campaign, like for our kickoff event, for instance, I was like, hey, let's not make it, $500 to get in, like a lot of fundraisers. Let's ask people to bring pads or tampons, boxes of pads and tampons, and we'll donate them to the Period Collective for Chicago. We ended up collecting over 5,600. Every single person came with a box, and it's because they don't want to feel helpless. And like, we are continuing to do this with our campaign resources. Our campaign office doubles as a mutual aid hub. Like, people come in to get clothes, to get food, to get toiletries. We have books are such a big thing. When I tell people that are in need coming in, hey, do you want a book too, like, they get so excited because it's not just like, oh, here's a can of beans, bye. People deserve to have good things. We all deserve to have good things. And I don't even say like, vote for me. This is literally just what I think we should be doing with money in politics and with money in general.
Well, and the other part you said is about the mutual aid piece, which is whether or not it's cuts to Medicaid or Medicare, the VA, the agriculture department cut $1.5 billion out of food pantries and before, during the day, and after school lunches and meals. Our neighbors are going to need this stuff. Not me, but our neighbors for whom, like, there's a guy named Ron Insana who is on CNBC, Cat, and his family was on food stamps when he was a kid. And he said, one, no one wants to be on food stamps. That's not someone's goal in life. That's not their aspiration. And second, Medicaid is a service. It's not like someone shows up with a check every month that says, here's $1,000. It's called Medicaid. It's the opportunity to not have to go to an emergency room, which is going to cost you an arm and a leg or cost the system an arm and a leg, and should not and has never been the idea as a primary care provider. But this is where these ideas that you and I are talking about seem radical to far too many establishment politicians for whom they just like, because they don't get to the ground, right?
Exactly.
They go to what's a cap, right? And they give a speech in Washington, D.C. to a bunch of people who already agree with them or were told to show up. And then, they're off and running with, the savior mentality, when in fact, folks need food or they need their kid to get a measles vaccine.
That's a really good point, what you said about like food stamps. Like, that isn't the goal for anyone to be on SNAP benefits. And we also create so many hurdles for people on SNAP benefits. Like, you have to weigh food in many cases to make sure, you have specific cereals you can get. You have all of these hurdles and hoops that you have to jump over and through. And, we have a policy of take what you need. Chicago Republicans are saying that that I need to be like investigated because this is obviously bribery by just having food at my office that anyone can take. But also, a lot of them say, well, people are going to take advantage of that system. You want to know what's cool? They don't. And even if they did, I don't know their circumstances. Maybe they do need all that food. And even if they don't, maybe they, are walking a while and they want to make sure that they have food for the next few days. That's fine by me. No questions asked. Take what you need. And there's enough for everyone in this country, but not everyone is getting what they need. I mean, I just got insurance like 4 days ago because I got on Ben's insurance. I got laid off like a week after his enrollment started, or his enrollment ended. And so I couldn't afford the premiums I needed for getting my own insurance in the healthcare plan, especially because I have narcolepsy. And so now I have insurance. That's great. But for the last year, I have been using GoodRx as my insurance. I haven't gotten blood work that I need to get done. I haven't gotten all these things I need to get done. I'm still using old glasses. And the only way I would have gotten insurance is if I had a qualifying event, which means I needed to get really sick or really injured to get insurance. And there are tons of people in that boat right now. Why are we not using our money to help them? Those texts that you get saying, the world's going to end if you don't give me $5 by the end of the day. Where's that $5 going?
Well, I mean, the first 15 to 25% are going to a consultant. I can
Well, that's a
promise
really
you
good
that.
point. That's a really good
I
point.
can
That's one thing
promise
I
you
love about
that.
like our ad guys. When they send out texts and emails, we put a bunch of, what some might call arbitrary restrictions on these, but the people we're working with are super down. They actually send out some emails and texts that don't even have a donation link. It's just like, this is what the campaign's doing. This is what you've supported with your donation. We have like clear opt-outs. And we've actually had people asking us to text them more, which I think might be a first in US politics.
I promise you it is, because I don't want more of them. I'll take your text, Kat. Yours the only text I want. I can promise you that.
I get all of the emails when you respond to one of those emails. I see them, and very rarely are they anything negative. And oftentimes people just send me back pictures of their cats. It's awesome.
Because your cat Heater is a key part of your campaign team.
Yes, she is. She is the shadow candidate.
Let me go through that. You got laid off from Media Matters, and I want to ask two things. At Media Matters, you had a style which was irreverent, funny. You weren't afraid to kill some sacred cows or to singe, if not burn. Well, you're never afraid to burn the likes of Tucker Carlson, but you had an irreverence that I think was very both endearing and magnetizing to a lot of people. But then you got laid off because Media Matters got sued. And the thing that I'm curious about, this is a little bit outside the campaign, but it's broader to the left, is if that was a right-leaning organization, if that was a MAGA organization, they would have had more money than they needed to defend themselves. That there never would have been any chance that a lefty lawsuit was going to bring them down. But what we've seen, whether or not it's Media Matters, I'm not trying to put them down. It's really more of an indictment of the whole left ecosystem, is that they have to make choices to stay in operation as opposed to saying, no, we're going to take on Elon Musk, we're going to take on the FTC. Why is that? Why is that when confronted with a problem or a fight, too often those on the left back away? And I include the donor class in this as opposed to stepping up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really proud of Media Matters for not backing down because it would have been a lot easier to cave and throw their reporter under the bus, throw their reporting under the bus, cave to Elon Musk. For those who don't know, Elon Musk sued my former employer, Media Matters, for reporting, and the costs added up so much they had to lay off 12 people. And I had built up this big platform with my explainers about the far right. And so, I said, if you have to lay someone off on my team, make it me. But this lawsuit is still ongoing. It's because you're going against the richest man in the world. And Media Matters is kind of an anomaly here because they didn't back down. They haven't backed down. And that's very impressive. It also means they've had to make some sacrifices. And there is this feeling among what I've seen of like the Dem consultant and donor class, of like moving to the right and this panic. There's always a reaction. It's never standing firm or planning ahead or using that reaction, or using that action to react in a different way. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's to protect big money. I don't know if it's this feeling of like winning Republican voters over, when like you and I both know you're never going to out Republican a Republican. And standing firm in your beliefs actually resonates with a lot of Republican voters. I have people in my district that are like, I'm Republican, but I know I don't agree with everything you say, but I'm interested now. I'm curious and I want to come to an event sometime. It's kind of baffling to me because we've been running on Trump is an authoritarian. Trump is an authoritarian, and he is. That is absolutely correct. But then he's now in power, and it's like, well, I don't know, maybe we could work together on some of this stuff. And no, you can't compromise with fascism. Compromise isn't getting your hand cut off and being grateful they left you your pinky. That's just not what it is.
Well, I've said this for a long time, is if you decide that you want to compromise with MAGA or Donald Trump, then you're sitting at the same table as the Camp Auschwitz guy or anybody else. That those are the people that occupy that table. Is that who you want to sit with? And for me, it's been, I mean, everybody knows at this point, the answer's for me been no, but this unwillingness to go against the grain vis-a-vis Republicans is decades old now. right? I mean, what started with Ronald Reagan's election 1980 really was put into place by Bill Clinton in the 90s. And you could make an argument that, George W. Bush did what a Republican was going to do. And I'm not talking about the war, I'm really talking about the economics and all of that. And then,
But the war too.
and the war too, which that's a whole, we could do 2 hours on that. But then Obama comes in on hope and change. But what's the first thing that happens is bailouts for the big guys, screw you for the little guys. And so nothing has really changed. So should anybody be surprised that in 2016, if the options were, and I got this totally wrong, Kat, if the options were somebody who says, I'm going to change everything because I'm getting screwed, or more of the same, everything's fine, that people took, I'll blow the whole thing up, I'm getting screwed.
Right. And it's like we saw this in 2024 as well. I'm, as a lot of people know, I'm half Palestinian, and a lot of people were concerned about the war in Gaza, which is understandable because our weapons are being used to kill civilians in like unbelievable numbers. Anytime someone asked a question or asked Harris to talk more about it, it felt like we got a lot of the, well, you want Trump to win. And that's absolutely not the case. It's a matter of just like at least acknowledging that there's a problem. And that lack of acknowledgement, it feels like gaslighting. It is gaslighting. It felt like talking about, stock numbers under Biden. A lot of people were still hurting. When people are hurting, they get scared. Republicans, that's why like a lot of them, why the conservative, media sphere has been so successful. They're playing media on easy mode. They are hacking that part of your brain that's scared, and they're getting it more scared. When people are scared, they want someone strong and someone that says, I hear your pain, and someone that offers a solution. And even if that solution is total bullshit and garbage, it's still a solution. And instead you're saying, oh, everything's fine, I'm not going to do anything differently. You're hurting, but the guy that is currently in power, I'm going to do the exact same thing as him. Wouldn't change a thing. Of course people don't respond to that. And even if they didn't vote for Trump, they didn't vote at all.
Well, so that's something too that I've seen alongside, that working alongside Democrats is the idea that it's so transactional. The problem is that the candidates and the consultants know it's transactional. The voters know it's transactional. They're all sort of willing to accept the lie. I mean, a friend of mine sent me a focus group of 13 Latinos and Latinas who voted for Trump in 2024. 11 of the 13 said they'd vote for him again. 2 of them said they wouldn't vote for him, but they'd vote for a third party. And then he asked them about the Democratic Party. And time again, Kat, it was the same thing. They make promises they never keep. They say something, but they don't mean it. And I think that's the part that is so clear, I think, to so many voters, which is I'm just trying to get to 50% plus one, because the only thing I really believe in is that I should be in charge and you should let me. And it turns out that that's a really terrible campaign message.
Right. And it's one of these things where just, my God, just have some empathy. And it doesn't need to be performative. Once again, I'm like trying to show with the way we do our campaign to the most cynical of consultants and operatives out there. Look, if you can't do a good thing because it's a good thing to do, look how it resonates with people. Look how it gets people together. Look how it gets people to vote. I mean, we have over 3,500 volunteers. We have 8 months till the primary. And that's because people want to be heard, but they also don't want to feel helpless. And that's just like very basic humanity here. Going back to kind of the young men thing, this is like one of these demographics that Democrats keep saying we need to get. And yet when Trump was bombing Iran, I heard from a lot of young men and their families in our district that they're scared of a draft. And there was no indication that we would have, a draft put in at this moment, but also underestimating Trump, saying that could never happen. We haven't had a draft since Nixon, all this stuff that invalidates their fears. Of course, it's terrifying to think that you would be brought into a war that you did not ask for, that is wildly unpopular, where you could die. You're an 18-year-old kid and you could die for a war that no one wants except some military contractors and the people in power, and not even acknowledge that if you want young men, listen to their concerns. It's not about putting on a flannel and holding an axe and pretending that you know how to shoot a gun. It's about having any
I call that the
empathy.
Jonah Ryan strategy from Veep.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, we punish vulnerability for men in this country. We have everything so isolated, and people like Steve Bannon saw this in the early 2010s and capitalized on it by creating these right-wing media ecosystems. And with my campaign, we have so many young men volunteers, and it's because we just treat them like people. I'd like to tell the story of we needed some help building some shelves in the office. And so I put in our campaign Discord server, Discord, a place where a lot of young men are, and said, hey, does anyone want to help us build these shelves? And like 8 guys came to help us build shelves. And they barely talked to me the entire time. They just wanted to build some shelves. They just hung out with each other, making furniture. And then they left. And they got a snack too. But these are just things that we need community for. And I don't understand why this is such a complex concept to people.
So I want to bring Bannon back for a second because I was actually going to bring him up before you did. I I listen to his podcast occasionally just to see,
because you love him so much.
Because I love him, because I'm a Bannonite.
Bannon head.
And I listened to his episode yesterday, and he was talking about something very similar in a very similar way, Kat. We have 50,000 soldiers and Marines and airmen and Navy personnel in the Middle East. And he said they're human shields. That's what they're there for. And I was thinking to myself, we're in an upside down world where like a guy like me who was at the White House, or was at the Treasury Department on 9/11, was at the White House in 2002 when we went everywhere we went with President Bush. He was a conquering hero. And I was at the brand new Department of Homeland Security in 2003 when the Iraq War started, going, am I really agreeing with Steve Bannon on this? Is he right? And then, but the other thing he said, which was really interesting, was we can have a disagreement on what we should do. Now, of course, he's 100% pro-Trump, Trump ended the war, all that BS. But he said, it's okay to have this conversation. And if I have this conversation, I'm not anti-Muslim on one side and I'm not an anti-Semite on the other. And this is so crazy to me that when Bannon is making sense on that, Kat, like where in the hell are we? Right? Where are we?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Steve Bannon is there's always another motive, and it's to consolidate that base we were just talking about. And when Trump was bombing Iran, once again, like one of the most unpopular actions he could do, going to war with Iran, Democrats should have come out and said together, no, absolutely not. And should have said that we are the party that won't draft you, because that is what I did not realize how concerned young men like 18 to 25 were with that. And I was thinking, of course they are. You're automatically like registered into the draft when you turn 18. Of course that's something that's kind of hanging over your head in the back of your mind. Why wouldn't it? This just goddamn.
It's really interesting that you bring that up, because registering for selective service for the draft is the last thing in this country that all American men of all stripes have to do. Right? And when I'm a lot older than you, but I had to go to the post office to do it. I'm sure you could do it online, or maybe, as you said, it happens automatically now. I don't know. But it is a weird moment in a young man's life where, okay, yes, we haven't had the draft since 73, I think. But it always could happen. That's why you have to register, so they know where to find you in the time that it happens. But also, of your generation, Kat, you don't remember a time when, if you look out at the pond, to use a terrible metaphor, there were nothing but black swans. That there was the white swans had flown south for the winter, and it was nothing but black swans. And every year or every 2 years or everything, there's another crisis that affects you or affects your parents or affects your family or affects the country. And the same thing happens. Just deal with it. Deal with it. We're going to make bad decisions. We're going to put things in place. A la 1990, whatever it was, when Clinton decided to get rid of Glass-Steagall. The repeal of Glass-Steagall led immediately to 2007, 2008, 2009, right? Obama has to come in and fix it, but he doesn't really fix it, right? He fixes it for a certain group of people. and it saves the system such as it is. But again, people are like, but is this working for me? And the
Right.
answer is it's not. And then you have friends you mentioned, I'm just saying, my friends that listen to Rogan, right? The system does work for them, but they don't like it either.
Yeah. I mean, millennials were given a promise. They're like, you go to college, you get a job, you have a family, all that stuff. And it was a lie. And they were given that, but they were given that promise. And then my generation, they were just kind of like, you're on your own. You're going to eat shit and you're going to like it. Like every single major part of my life and people my age has been punctuated by an international crisis. I mean, like our first memories are 9/11. We're becoming, little people going into middle school, like having our own opinions. And then our parents or our friends' parents lose their jobs because of the 2008 financial crisis. I'm going into college, Trump wins. I graduate from college and it's COVID. And I think about like all the kids that were in school during COVID. I graduated May 2020. So I like graduated at the perfect time because I didn't have to, I mean, like not perfect because, I was making $0 and the economy was in shambles, but it was even harder for the children and the college students and anyone who was going through these formative years of their life in the worst global pandemic in a century.
Let me ask this back to the young men, the young women, everybody who's coming to your campaign, 3,500 volunteers. One thing too is that we have culturally, socially, and subsequently financially made, whether or not it's service workers or factory jobs, manufacturing, right? We have said that if that's the job you choose or that's the job you have to do, that you are also less than, right? 68% of the country does not go to college, and we don't ever let them forget it. And I think that's one thing that the left, from my perspective, the left at an elite level is also saying is if you didn't go to college, you're not our people. And they say, oh, no, we want the working class and we want the white working class and we want this and we want that. But the truth is that they want their votes, but they don't have to do anything for it.
Right. And they
just have an
fundamentally
expectation that they'll get it because they always have.
Exactly. And they fundamentally don't understand what the working class is now because people hear working class, specifically people in power, and they think like, oh, guys working at the factory, they come home to their TV dinners and their wife, sets it in front of them and then goes and cleans the kitchen. And no, it's anyone who can't afford to miss a paycheck or two. It's, service industry workers, it's bartenders, it's gig workers, it's most people in our world, and yet they're discounted as if their labor is worth less than. And then when it comes to taxes, our labor is considered less than. We need to be taxing income the same. The way, if we properly tax the rich and tax wealth, we could have a cost of living exemption, which means that anyone making under the cost of living would pay $0 in taxes. It means that all of your income above that would be taxed, but not your cost of living. I mean, I am on a payment plan for the IRS this year. What are we doing? And meanwhile, the richest in our society are paying $0.
So that's where I want to bring back Zoran in New York City. Is the reaction to his win from the right is expected, whatever, right? Like they're going to do what they're going to do, right? Communism, red flag of revolution, blah 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 blah. But the reaction from the mainstream media and the establishment left of anything remotely different than what we've basically had since, right, for the better part of half a century, is their hair's on fire. None of this works. They point to free buses, which none of them are going to ride, and city run groceries. Like I don't know, and frankly, it doesn't to me. I don't live in New York City. I'm not going to live in New York City. But the idea that someone could come with something remotely different, and the better option is the 70-something-year-old asshole who got Me Too'd, but now he's the guy you desperately want. I mean, to me, it was such a perfect example of why your generation, and I think not only your generation, but a lot of those same people we talked about, whether or not they're working class, they're below the poverty line, they're basically just making ends meet every week, just say, to hell with you. To hell with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like, hey, you get a free puppy, or you get the guy that used taxpayer dollars to request gynecological records from the women that he harassed. which one is it, you know? And people talk about how, like, well, young people don't vote, blah, 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 blah. What if we gave them something to vote for? What if we said, we hear you? What if we talked like real people? What if every single thing we said didn't sound like it went through 5 consultants first? I
Oh,
mean, part of the reason a lot of people like Trump is because he's real. And I remember in 2024, I had people at PAX asking me, well, like, because, you know, if you've watched my videos, a word that's used with them a lot is authenticity, because I try to communicate the way I want to be communicated to. And I had multiple people from different packs ask me, so how do we, you know, make authenticity? And it's like, you're fundamentally misunderstanding the thing you're trying to achieve.
yes. It's like that it's that great, scene from 30 Rock that's become a meme a million times of Steve Buscemi, with the backwards hat and the skateboard saying, "Hello, fellow kids." I mean, that's the Democratic Party. Is that meme?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But also it's because
ridiculous.
they're so afraid of saying the wrong thing. They're so afraid that something they might say might offend or might be slightly off base. And then what? Right? And because of that, they say nothing. To your point about, I mean, how many Democratic speeches have I heard in the last couple of weeks that clearly were surveyed, the issues were surveyed, right, and poll tested for hundreds of thousands of dollars. They were focus grouped to within an inch of their life. They were another 10 or 20 or $30,000 was spent on online testing, and then another 50 or $100,000 was spent on a speechwriter. So $1 million to achieve what? A pint of Breyer's vanilla ice cream.
Exactly. You know, with it comes kind of back to that show don't tell aspect. And when I was talking about trying to get, you know, the most cynical people in politics to do good things, it's not just because you're doing good things and people like that. But for my campaign, for instance, we are using our money to do good things, but it also means that people want to help. And it also means that people believe you when you say stuff. The amount of people I've seen that are like, I wasn't sure about her at first, and I'm not sure about her now, but I can at least tell she's doing it for real. And we're still 8 months to go. Is I can't even count the number of people I've seen say that. The way that you reach voters and the way that you convince them is do your fucking job.
Well, so let's talk about that. So you've got 8 months to go. You've got a fairly crowded primary that I saw your campaign put out a thing the other day that in a recent survey, and I take surveys with a whole shaker of salt, not just a grain of salt, had you in second. So how do you feel about things? We should assume that given the nature of the Democratic Party, that at least one, if not several of your opponents will probably accept money from a group like APAC, and they are going to try and take as much bark off as you can. How are you going to deal with that?
You know, I'm less focused on like this 4D chess stuff. You can spend all of your time trying to make other people do things. So I'm focused on my campaign. I mean, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. Petitioning season's coming up. We have a lot of super fun stuff planned for that. We have an army on our side. We plan to knock every single door in this district, urban, suburban, and rural. I'm not taking corporate money. It's playing politics on hard mode. And then with all the restrictions I've set on my campaign of like not sending spam texts, of, you know, not trying to do predatory tactics to fundraise. It's difficult, but it's so rewarding. It's so fulfilling. It's absolutely worth it. And people are sick of money in politics, left and right, Republican, Democrat, independent, anything in the middle, apathetic voters. They feel like their vote doesn't matter. They feel like the things they do don't matter. And that's what fascist regimes want. They want you at your home, doom scrolling, feeling paralyzed because you can't solve everything by yourself. And so we're trying to make this like a hyper local on the ground campaign. One of my favorite events that we do is I do like embroidery classes. We got these campaign embroidery kits designed by this lovely little queer owned business. One says no kings, one says tax the rich, and one says I hate Illinois Nazis. And because I'm a big Blues Brothers fan.
I think most of my listeners probably understand that joke, but I certainly appreciate it.
You know, we spend like 2-3 hours at a local business and I teach people how to do embroidery. And it's really fun. It's a great way to talk to people, to have extended time hearing what they care about. And, you know, I don't hear stuff about my opponents. I don't hear stuff about, like niche political things that you'll hear on like group chats with, I'm sure you and I are both in similar ones where it's like, oh, well, do this or that. It's what people actually care about. And that's my strategy for the campaign. I'm not in this to, you know, become some politico darling. I'm in this to help people. I'm running because I am the candidate with experience fighting the far right. And I'm trying to do all of the things that I think a politician or a candidate should do. I've been wondering because this, it's exhausting. This is exhausting, but it's also so rewarding. It's so fulfilling. It's a lot of fun. But I've been wondering how people do this for decades and decades. And the conclusion I've come to is they stop doing it well. Like empathy is a muscle that you have to flex. And even if you get into politics for the right reasons, if you don't continuously flex that muscle, if you don't go back to your district at every possible opportunity, if you aren't talking to people, if you're just in rooms with your highest dollar donors, if you forget, like if you do all this stuff, you forget that every single person, everyone in your district is someone's child, that they have their own lives and their own traumas and their own fears. And you forget it. And it's oftentimes not on purpose. There are plenty of people that get into politics as, career booster because they see this on their ladder to becoming the president or whatever. But there are also a lot of them that get in it for the right reasons. And this system is built to eliminate those right reasons. And I'm really lucky because I am starting this campaign with a big platform that I built. So I don't have to jump through as many hoops as others do. I already have, at least legitimacy in my field of work. And I already have a method of communication. But if you're starting out a, congressional campaign from square one, you have to build all of that. And it's really hard unless you have wealthy allies. And I mean, the thing that I've realized running is this entire system is just constructed to make it as inaccessible as possible for people to run for office unless they're wealthy. Like half of Congress is worth at least $1 million. And we have concerns about insider trading and all of that. But I think a lot of it is just because of how hard it is to do unless you already have money. Like for one instance, I didn't know about this till I ran. Non-incumbent candidates can take candidate salaries. And that is calculated, the maximum is calculated as half of your average income over the last 5 years, up to $174,000, the congressional salary. If you are a parent of 2 kids and you're making $32,000 a year, which is the poverty line for a family of 4, if you've been doing that for the last 5 years, your salary is now $16,000. But if you've been making $200K over the last 5 years, you can still have a cushion of $100,000 throughout your campaign.
Right. So it absolutely advantages the wealthy or the people who have been successful. Say, I'm going to run politics. I'm going to run government like a business because I was an insurance broker or whatever, a car dealer. Yeah, and they say, okay, yeah, I'm going to stop taking a salary here. But again, 100 grand, 174 grand is a lot of money. And I think I knew about the candidate salary. I didn't realize the parameters around it.
Yeah, so like 5 years ago, I graduated into COVID, so I was making $0, and we calculated what mine would be, and it would be like around probably less than $20 a day. And with like payroll and all these other things that you have to do and the compliance issues, we were just like, it's not worth it. But so I couldn't do this. I have some savings, but they were cratered by lease break fees. I have my Patreon where people give me $1 to see my cat every day. And I'm really lucky to have a partner that's willing to, pick up my slack. But if those things didn't exist, I would not be able to do this.
Well, so I think of you, and then I think down in Arizona where there's a special election, I think coming up any day, Deja Fox, who is another Gen Z candidate running against the daughter of Raul Grijalva, who died in office. She stepped in, gets all of his campaign infrastructure, and then both Democratic senators endorse the daughter of the dead guy. Now, to me, I don't understand why they decided they needed to get involved other than it was a incumbent protection racket, which is, well, Raul was solid, so we'll give his daughter a shot too. And Deja Fox, we don't know. We don't need another AOC, right? We don't need somebody like that in the caucus, which in fact is 100% wrong. You need more Kats and more Dejas in the caucus.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to primaries, there's a very weird dynamic. when it comes to endorsements and when it comes to funding and all this stuff. And it's really difficult to navigate and very confusing. And it also makes it harder for young people to run. I think we need more of those so we don't have, the fact that multiple Democrats have died in office since Trump became president is a problem.
Yeah,
is
so
a problem.
6 months ago, 5.5 months ago, right?
Yeah, multiple Democrats have died in office. We have lost votes on key votes. We have lost key votes because multiple people have died in office. And it's not just the age thing, I mean, experience is also like a factor here. And I don't just mean experience legislating, because that's great, but I actually don't think like Congress should just be career politicians. I don't think it should just be lawyers. I don't think it should just be, businessmen or CEOs. I think it should be diverse. You need educators, you need labor leaders, you need activists, you need healthcare providers. Because when you're legislating on things, even if you have the best intentions, a lot of issues now become abstract unless you've experienced them. And the average age of Congress is 58. The average American is 38. Most of our Congress didn't go through school shooting drills. They haven't had to worry about out-of-pocket costs because they have great insurance. They don't rent. I mean, a lot of older people, when they hear rent nowadays, they think you must be some rich millionaire. And it's like, no, that's what rent in a city costs now.
You got a 3-bedroom with a pool and the whole thing, right? Shiny steel and glass building. And you're like, no, it's a 4-story walk.
Right. Or like, I mean, my apartment, the Chicago Tribune reported my rent, which is $4,000. We had to move on super short notice, get like a semi-furnished place, have an office, or like have a second bedroom because I worked from home. And have 2 weeks to find it. And so Ben and I split this place and we each paid $2,000 and, finally got a new place, which is awesome. But I would guarantee you there are a lot of older people, if they heard my rent for that one bedroom, they would be like, what? $2,000 is the lowest my rent has ever been. And I am so lucky that now my rent is like a little bit lower than that. But things are different now. And rent's only going up as housing is hoarded by corporate landlords. Rent is going up as there are no protections for tenants. Rent is going up, and if you get evicted, it's going to be a lot harder to get an apartment.
And again, the eviction rate is, I assume you'd probably know better than I, far higher for those who again are at that 32. So let's be clear, $32,000 for a family of 4 is, and that's considered the poverty line. I mean, this is the United States of America in 2025, and this is where I think your office is becoming a hub for mutual aid. But I think about the idea, Kat, having the idea that in the United States in 2025 that we need food banks, right? That we need food pantries, that kids have to go to school to get lunch because their parents, even during the summer, because their parents can't afford to buy it. I mean, to me, that is as shocking an indictment on the system as there is. And I'll just tell you this. I mean, the thing that's stuck in my craw is the biggest exemplar of this is the fact that we're going to spend $1 trillion on updating nuclear weapons over the next 10 years, right? $100 billion a year for the next 10 years for 3,800 warheads whose only job is to end humanity. And like 230 billion of it is because like Raytheon's missile is 12 years overdue and 38% over budget. I mean, to me, it is also about priorities, which is we don't treat ourselves as Americans very well. We don't treat our fellow citizens and fellow residents very well. And I was actually talking to a former member of Congress last week, and I said that, and he said, well, this is what we elect. And I said, because this is the system in which we are stuck.
These are the options we're given.
Yeah, we're given options, and not shocking that so many people are like, F it, right? In 2022, 44% of people participated in the midterms. That means significantly more than half the population decided it wasn't even worth showing up. And to me, I don't think it gets worse than that, because to your point about fascism, that's exactly what fascists want. They want you saying, F it, it doesn't matter. My life's not going to get better. It's probably going to get worse, and I'm just going to have to suffer through it, and this is my lot in life. And you know what? That is a caste system. That is not America.
Amen. I mean, we're taught that we don't deserve good things. And we do. We all do. Elon Musk should not have his own personal compound. If any American can't afford housing, groceries, and healthcare with money left over. Like, that's my biggest issue besides like anti-authoritarianism is basic existence. That's what I call it. And it's the idea that everyone deserves housing, groceries, and healthcare with money left over. And the fact of the matter is those things, universal healthcare, building housing, and making sure that corporate landlords are properly regulated, and protections against price gouging actually save us money. And they make sure that we have a healthy, thriving population that can also contribute to the economy, but also just exist. Like, we are not just a means of profit. We are people. We have our own lives. We have our own memories. We have our own likes and dislikes and favorite movies. And fuck you for thinking that we aren't. We deserve good things, and good things are possible.
Well, from my perspective, it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as you see it. And if you see the Buffalo Bills is the thing that you care most about, if every weekend you put on that Bills jersey and you go tailgate or you watch it with your buddies, and that's the thing you care about, what business is it of mine, right? Go live the life. And I think last thing here, because I've kept you too long already, is that the things that allow for authoritarians, the things that allow for Trump, are the fact that people do not have that level of security. So when the guy who says, I alone can fix it, shows up and does indeed share their grievance, because his grievance is real, even if it's Queens to Manhattan, right? People will go, I'll take a shot. I'll take what's the worst that can happen. And this is the worst that can happen, is that
and it's going to get worse.
It's going to get worse. It's not going to be better in the next 3.5 years. And we're like, I don't know how this happened. I know exactly how it happened.
We've been telling you how this happened.
Yeah, we've been telling you for years, like, if you keep doing this, something bad's going to happen. And they're like, you don't know. We have the data. We have the machines that tell us. And you know what? We don't. All right, Kat, thank you so much for joining me. I have kept you too long. Please tell everybody where they can find your campaign, where they can find you, and how they can help.
So you can find my campaign at catforillinois.com. That's cat with a K. You can find all my social media on there. And the best way to support our campaign right now is to donate, because we are, supported by thousands of individual donors. Our average donation is not $500. It's like $35. We need your help so that way we can win, especially against corporate money. If you want to volunteer, whether you are in Illinois or you're remote, you can go to discord.gg/cat for Illinois. That's cat with a K. And we also have merch, and you can buy that at catforillinois.com/store.
Awesome. As always, gang, you can find me on Twitter, TikTok, and says.us at Reed Galen, Threads and Instagram at Reed_Galen USA, and at Substack, the Homefront. Kat Abugazaleh, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody else, we'll see you next time.